evening. I'm Wynn Kane, and for those of you who may not know, the League of Women Voters is a national organization with over 800 local and state chapters. We are a political but nonpartisan nonprofit organization. That means we do not ever endorse or support any candidate or political party. Our mission is to educate voters and involve them in the political process in government. That's the best way to make democracy work. Membership in the League is open to both men and women. We have lots of activities throughout the year. If you're interested in government at any level in public policy or in being engaged in the political process, please think about joining us. We would love to have you. There are membership brochures by the entrance door, or go to our website, www.lwv-lflb.org, to get more information, or follow us on Facebook. Also, if you would like to support the League's work by making a donation to help offset the cost of these debates, there's a donation jar or remittance envelope out the front door behind this area. We thank you all for coming. We're pleased to be able to present these debates and give you an opportunity to hear your local candidates. Be sure to mark your calendars, as we'll be hosting another set of debates this Sunday, October 16th at Lake Forest High School Auditorium, starting at 1:30. The doors open at 1 o'clock. Candidates for the 10th Congressional District, State Senate 29th District, and State Representative 58th District will be participating. Also, watch for more information about our November program about climate change. I want to thank the Lake Bluff Recreation Center for providing this space. The program is also video recorded by our friends at Lake Forest TV and will be shown on channel 17 or 19 on our website and on YouTube. Now let me introduce our moderator, Valerie Krejci. League policy states that the moderator must come from outside the voting district. Valerie lives in Cook County. She's a longtime member of the League of Women Voters of Evanston and has been very active at the League of Women Voters of Illinois. She'll explain the rules and guide the debates. Well, let's welcome Valerie Krejci. Valerie.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here and hosting yet another one of these debates. We have our agenda tonight, and we are going to start we have 5 different offices that we're going to deal with. All the candidates will be given 1.5 minutes to make opening remarks, and then we will change order. So whoever goes first for that goes second for the first question, and we'll rotate. At the end, they'll have a closing statement of 1.5 minutes, and we'll do it in the reverse order. There's timers up front who will enforce these time limits, and there are people in the back who are fielding the questions. And we've had to do that because we don't want the same question asked all the time. We don't want repeats. We want the wording a little bit. We might combine things. You know, it just works better. One time I was witness to one where there was an open mic, and believe me, you don't want that. I will not let you talk over. You're going to have your time limit, and then I'm going to cut you off. And then we're going to do some adjusting, because we're scheduled to start with the recorder of deeds, but neither of those candidates have shown up. And so League policy would have, if only one showed, we'd let somebody speak for 2 minutes, but when no shows, we can't have the debate, folks. So we're going to move on to number 2, which is the coroner office, the Lake County coroner. You each have 1.5 minutes. The timers are up front, and then after your opening statement, I'm going to get a question from the back, and we're going to start going through. We have, you know, a little adjustment here because we've got room, maybe a half an hour at the most, because I have to adjust the other races to get in. Okay? So I'll watch the clock and I'll give you an idea. Mr. Rudd, you go first.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Dr. Thomas Rudd. I'm currently the coroner of Lake County, having been elected and starting office December 1st, 2012. I'm currently the Democratic write-in candidate for coroner and have been endorsed by the entire Lake County Democratic Party. Now let me give you some of my credentials. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and biology, master's degree in medical microbiology or infectious diseases. I got my medical degree from the University of Illinois College of Medicine. I did an internship and fellowship in pathology at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, and I did a fellowship in nuclear medicine at Michael Reese Hospital and Medical Center. I am a licensed physician and surgeon, and I'm the only one at this table that can practice medicine legally. I'm board certified in anatomic and clinical pathology as well as nuclear medicine, and I became recertified voluntarily twice. I'm one of the few pathologists that have taken that test 3 times and passed it. I've done thousands and thousands of autopsies. I've done 750,000 surgical biopsies, specimen interpretations. That's equivalent to 25,000 autopsies. I promised when I got in that certain things I would do. First, I said that I would ensure that every death investigation would be based on current scientific evidence. Sorry.
Thank you for following the time limit. You will have time to fill in later. Okay, now we're going to go to Howard Cooper.
Hi, I'm Dr. Howard Cooper and I'm running for Lake County Coroner. I'm a lifelong resident of Lake County. I grew up in Deerfield and Riverwoods. I've been a dentist for 25 years and I practice in Gurnee. I've been practicing forensic dentistry for just as long. In the late 90s, I studied at the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology, and at that time I joined DMORT, the Disaster Mortuary Operational Response Team. On 9/11 at 11 a.m., my deputy commander called and asked if I could go to New York. The following day, I was flown to New York on a C-130 with 2 F-16s by our side. We were the only plane to take off from O'Hare that day. In New York, I worked at Ground Zero in the office of the Chief Medical Examiner doing dental identification of the victims of the World Trade Center. I was there until the end of September and went back again that Thanksgiving. Earlier that year, I became hazmat certified and joined the DMORT Weapons of Mass Destruction team. With that team, I spent 5 weeks in New Orleans, recovering, decontaminating, and identifying victims of Hurricane Katrina. I've worked with coroners and medical examiners across the country to do dental identifications. My main reason for running for coroner is death prevention. I want to get into our high schools and talk to the kids about heroin, texting and driving, suicide, and alcohol. Every single high school in our county has had multiple heroin deaths. The first time you try heroin, you're hooked. We need to stop this behavior before it starts. I'm the father of 5 and something needs to be done.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to Michael Donworth.
Hello, I'm Mike Donworth. I'm a retired 30-year Waukegan police officer, and I was 4 years at the coroner's office. And just want to remind everybody that the coroner's office is a law enforcement position. It's not a medical one. The coroner can't do autopsies at the coroner's office. Therefore, I have the right experience. I have a bachelor's degree from Western Illinois University, and I also have 38 years of death investigative knowledge. I have over 2,500 hours of specialized training in police and death investigation. I completed the Medical Legal Death Investigators Basic and Master's Certification course. And speaking of that, everyone in our office needs to be certified as a medical legal death investigator. During my time, I was an evidence technician, and I observed and assisted in hundreds and hundreds of autopsies, working with the forensic pathologists. I am committed to improving the quality of work by these professionals. During our investigation, we will follow the facts and we will follow the law. I will not be swayed by anyone. I have worked in the office, and I know the current office lacks compassion, professionalism, and integrity. I will bring these qualities back. I will reestablish the ties with the police, fire, hospitals, nursing homes, and funeral homes.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to go to the part where you answer the questions. And we're going to start with Mr. Cooper. And here is the first question. Pathology is critical to the coroner's investigation process. Describe the process that is used in Lake County to adequately address the high volume of cases that require investigation. If you were to be the successful candidate, what changes, if any, would you make in the office?
Well, as far as the exact process, I'm not familiar with it because I've never worked in the office. I know that I will be working with forensic pathologists that we hire. By law, the coroner actually cannot do autopsies, and that's the statute. So we hire out to do these things. So I would be bringing on people on board to be doing the procedures, and I will be monitoring. I've been a doctor for 25 years. I've been involved in pathology. I certainly took pathology. I've certainly dissected human beings, which is part of my training as a doctor. And I'll be more than adequate and good to talk with the pathologist about what the procedures that they need to do are.
Thank you. Now down to Mr. Donahoworth.
Okay, yeah.
You go next.
Okay, got it.
Same question.
Got it.
And the other thing I should have repeated is that if you got some burning question for these guys, you got to write it on the card and send it back to that corner. Okay.
Yeah. Basically, I've worked in the office and I've worked with the pathologists there. I mean, everybody follows the same procedure in autopsies and collecting evidence and everything there. I'll follow the policies that we have to do, and I will definitely hire better pathologists than we have. We had a couple that were not the cream of the crop, and I had worked with them multiple times, and they had not come up to at least my standards, and that's basically it.
Fine. You do not have to talk the whole time. Okay, Mr. Rudd, your time. Dr. Rudd, go ahead.
When I took office, the first thing we did was establish that we follow the principles and protocols of the National Association of Medical Examiners. This is the premier death investigation group that is in this country. They know what they're doing, and we're following it. I had promised that we would become certified by the National Association of Medical Examiners. We almost did, but they had one exclusion that kept us from getting it. The coroner has to be forensic pathologist and board certified, but we got a provisional accreditation by name, which is a gold star in having that in your office. And finally, I know pathology. I know pathologists out there. We've hired brand new pathologists, some of the cream of the crop. They are currently working. They're all certified. And I examine all their work and make sure it is done correctly because I know medicine and I know pathology. In fact, I've caught one or two errors that the pathologist didn't know the diagnosis because they didn't do surgical pathology and I did. As a result, we found 2 genetic diseases and we helped the family.
Thank you. All right, now, this is question number 2 that goes first to Mr. Donahoworth at the end. Will you be available to serve full-time in this office? If not, what will happen to the $124,000 salary provided for a full-time employee?
Yes, I will be available 24/7. It will be my full-time job. You have to be there. You have to be available. You have to be there during working hours. You have to be there after hours. I will be out to crime scenes. I will be at hospitals. I'll be at funeral homes. I'll be wherever I am needed to go and do and help these families and help the hospitals and the fire department and whoever else is needed. I will be there 24/7.
Thank you. Dr. Rudd.
It's obvious that it's a 24/7, 365 job, but let me explain some of the things I've done. When Justice Howell was shot in the back twice by a Zion police officer, nobody talked to the family. I was the first one that went out there. I met with the aunt, I met with the parents. I donated money to bury him. When Darren Hanna was murdered by the North Chicago police, I was contacted by the family and I counseled them and talked to them. I got into office. I re-examined the autopsy. The manner of death was wrong. It was done by a disgraced ex-Waukegan chief of police. who was covering the Brotherhood, the Blue Brotherhood. It was an obvious homicide, and he wouldn't label it. I labeled it, the family got $3.5 million. Take a look at the Benjamin King case. I was asked to review it, and I was shocked that the findings were totally erroneous. We issued a new report with Dr. Jones. We presented to the state's attorney. Nothing was done. People think I'm working for Kalazinski. I'm working for Benjamin Kingen and his family. They need to know the true cause and manner of death, and that's what we determined.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper.
Yes, I will be available 24/7, as will everybody up here. The job certainly is a 24-hour-a-day job. I will be making sure that whether it's 1 in the morning, 5 in the morning, anytime, I will be making death notifications when necessary, and I will be available for all the citizens of Lake County.
Thank you. All right, now, question number 3. Going first to Dr. Rudd. What are the biggest challenges in a coroner's office?
I think the biggest challenge is the investigation process when you're alerted to a non-natural death. For instance, a homicide. Let's look at the one that really made the press, Lieutenant Glinowitz. Initially, it was told to us it was a homicide. They kept preaching homicide, 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 homicide. Yet when we did the autopsy and the investigation, we weren't sure it was a homicide. I wasn't sure it was a homicide. The pathologist that did it, they weren't sure it was a homicide. In fact, we had Dr. Jones review it, one of the premier forensic pathologists. She couldn't determine either. And yet they tried to force that down our throat. I will not take sloppy police work and deal with it. I will not do politically correct things for the law enforcement. I call it as I see it, and that's what I did. We stuck to our guns, and we got it right. And that's the most important thing to do, to be able to judge the evidence as it is, using science, not on being politically correct, not on sloppy police work, but on the science.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper.
I think that there are many challenges in the coroner's office. I think first and foremost, we need to be there for our citizens. We need to make sure that we have timely, that we notify the family in a timely manner, that we give death certificates in a timely manner. All the things that people are coming to us for, we need to serve our population. That's first and foremost. Obviously, when it comes to investigating, yes, I mean, we certainly need to do investigations the right way. It's our crime scene. It's our job to make sure that we investigate properly. And that's one of the things that I want to do, is make sure that all of our investigators are certified by the American Board of Medical Legal Investigators. I think that is not only important for them, but is certainly important for the citizens of the county, so we can do the investigations and make sure that everything is done properly and with the highest regard for technology and everything that's involved with that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dunworth.
Are you ready? Okay. Yeah, definitely the investigation is the big part. To be able to be out there and to be able to be at the scene and do the investigations, and also allow these investigators to do their job. Give them the time to spend time at the scene, talk to the people there, talk to the witnesses, and get as much information as they can, and that way when they get that, they can relay it to the coroner and advise him of what's going on. Like he said, we need timely death notifications, and we need to assist the families. If the families need information, if the families need anything that we can do, we will contact them and we will help them and actually do anything we can. Thank you.
All right. I think we covered that one. Now we're on to question number 4. I think we're doing okay. I got lots, but I can't ask them all, so I'm looking through them. This is going to Mr. Cooper first. Would you favor eliminating the coroner's office and having an appointed medical examiner instead? Why or why not?
No, I would not be for that. Having the coroner an elected position really gives the power to the people. I mean, that's what elections are for. It's for all of us to get together and decide who will do the best job. And more importantly, if they're not doing the best job, you can vote them out. When you make it a medical examiner system, it's an appointed position by the county board. With that comes a lot more politics than you even see in this arena. It's somebody that's appointed, and you might not ever be able to get rid of them if they have friends or whoever that they are in cahoots with on the board. So I think that it's really important. I think the coroner certainly is, while they're not doing the actual autopsy, they're running the office. You have qualified people. There's no reason that we have to have a medical examiner per se.
Okay, Mr. Donworth?
Yes. No, no medical examiner. Keep the coroner. Because just like Dr. Cooper said, he said it makes him accountable. So if he isn't doing his job, if he's lax on things, these items can be brought out, and then in the next election, if you wish to replace them, you can. But I believe in the coroner's position and not the medical examiners.
Okay, Dr. Rudd?
Those two answers go against the National Institute of Health's recommendation, which says you should convert all coroner's office to medical examiners. In regards to being answerable to the people, you can hire a medical examiner two ways. You can put them on a 5-year, 4-year contract, in which it's renewed every 4 years by the board. The board members are obviously answerable to the people that put them there. So the electorate can tell their board members they don't like what's going on. The medical examiner will cut costs. Right now, we're shelling out $200,000-300,000 for forensic autopsies, and then you're paying the coroner $125,000. That's close to $400,000. You can easily get a medical examiner for about $200,000, so it would be cost effective. So it's much better to do it that way. I tried to convert it within 6 months of getting. I promised I would convert it. I met with the powers to be in Lake County, and they wouldn't agree to what I said was the devil in the details, and that is that it's an open-ended contract. They wouldn't accept that, so they backed off. We tried. They said, we're not going to do it. 12 months later, they came back to me and said, I hope you're running again. I said, why? He said, you're doing a good job, so we'd like to continue. And I said, I'd still like to convert it, and they said no.
Wow, I'm learning a lot about the coroner's office. Okay, I got more here. Question number 5, going first to Mr. Donworth on the end there. You get a first crack at this one. What personal qualifications do you feel you possess that make you the best candidate?
Well, I'm definitely compassionate, and with my 38 years of law enforcement experience, I've had to see everybody at all different problems in their lives. I've seen them happy, I've seen them sad, and I've also been to accident locations where they have seen their family and seen them die, and I've been more than happy to help them and assist them in whatever they want to do. I have an ideal for the office. I need to have the investigators all trained, get them all trained. We've waited for 4 years now to get these investigators trained, and they only have trained 2 out of the 7. I will do that. I will do training, and I will work forward to do whatever I can and whatever service I can do to the to the citizens of Lake County.
Thank you. Dr. Rudd?
Well, that's an interesting answer. I'd like to know 4 years ago, if you want to take the test for the American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigation, just ask me and we'll fill out the forms and let you take the test and pass it. Pay for it. Mr. Donworth never came to me. In terms of skill as a pathologist, coroner, I've dealt with families. I know what it's like. I've made diagnoses on people, sat with them, told them about their cancer, offered them hope. During a span of 15 years of private practice, I also did nuclear medicine, which is a form of radiology. with breast patients. I sat with them with their scan, told them whether it was positive or negative, offered them hope. And yes, near the end, when we exhausted hope, I sat down and told them there's very little we can do. And some of these patients I did autopsies on and talked to the remaining family members. That's what I know about compassion. I have it. I've practiced it. I'm a physician.
Mr. Cooper?
I've been treating patients for 25 years, so obviously I would imagine that you would believe that I'm very compassionate. Most of you probably don't want to go to the dentist, so I'm very used to that. I've also been involved in the two biggest tragedies or incidents that our country's ever seen, 9/11 and Katrina, probably the biggest disasters we've ever seen. So, and I've worked with families, I've spoken with them, I've talked to them about their loved ones, certainly getting all the dental records and going back and actually making the identifications for the families, which gives the family closure in a really, really hard and important time in their lives. So I've done that as well. Also, I think that it's very important to have run an office before. I have run an office for 25 years. I have some of my staff members have been with me for 25 years. I have a number that have been with me for 20 years, 6 years. So I've been working with people for a long time, and obviously they're staying with me, so they know that I can run things and I can do a very good job.
Okay, thank you. Oh boy, I'm debating about what next question is going to be. Okay, I've made my decision. Question number 6 goes first to Dr. Rudd. Do you follow the State Board of Elections rules to report all campaign contributions and expenses?
So far I have.
That makes an easy answer. Okay, next guy. Mr. Cooper.
Well, the answer would be yes.
3 yeses.
Wow, we took care of that one. All right. Now I'm up to Mr. Cooper. What are some of the reasons you would find sufficient to terminate an employee?
We had this question in the last debate.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Wasn't
no,
there.
it's okay. I find it so amazing that why we would think about firing people when we're trying to get elected. That's sort of an odd thing. I said before, I think that if people are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, if they're stealing, if they're lying, if they're cheating, if they're not doing their job, those are all grounds for reason for dismissal. We do in the coroner's office have a union, so obviously there are rules to, letting people go. It's not just firing people like in my private practice. So we certainly have to follow the rules that, of the union. But I really, again, will go back to what I said earlier. I'm not worrying about firing people. I'm worrying about bringing an office that is having a lot of trouble right now together, about bringing people together and working for a common goal. And I know it sounds silly because it's a coroner's office, but you should always have fun at work and do your job and enjoy it and work together, and the outcome should be good. I know that's what we do in my office every single day. For 25 years, I will say I've never worked. I have fun. We enjoy what we do. We treat patients. We do it to the best of our ability, and people are happy that we're doing that. And that's the same kind of ethic that I'm going to bring to the coroner's office.
Thank you. Mr. Donworth.
Well, don't want to fire anybody, but if you do, like he said, you have to follow the union contract, and the union contract provides for progressive discipline. I mean, you have to have a verbal, you have to have a written, and then you can be suspended. And then if the crime or the allegation is serious enough, then you can terminate. But there are rules that you have to follow. Basically, you have to follow the human resource policy, and you have to follow that before you can fire anybody, which of course Dr. Rudd didn't do. So we'll let that go with that.
There you go, Doc. There are rules you have to follow, and they're correct. There's a union in the office, and it's 3 strikes or you're out. Except when you commit such acts that are so bad that you can fire immediately, like being a drunk at a theater, accosting a server by taking your hand and forming a gun and pointing it at her head as he rips out the most vile, foul language that I had to tell the manager not to put it in the letter because it was so bad. I contacted Human Resources. It was their decision to say, go ahead and fire him, and we did. We also had a secretary who was about to attack one of the other secretaries. I went to Human Resources and dealt with them. They're the ones that told me these should be fired. Anything I did was with the support and backing of Human Resources in the county of Lake.
Okay. I think that was number 3, question 7. Okay. I'm going to give you one more question. That would be question number 8. Then we're going to have your 1.5-minute summaries for everyone.
I think so.
All right, fine, because we had to adjust because of the different things. Okay, all right, then the rule is that we're going to go in the opposite order of your opening statement. So, Mr. Dunworth, you go first, and we're going to come back down the line.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone for coming. Just to re-advise you that I'll be a full-time coroner there 24/7. My chief deputy and I will be there to answer questions, to do whatever we want, unlike the current coroner and his chief deputy. I would answer telephone calls and inquiries promptly. I would have an open door policy with the citizens of Lake County. I would return morale to the office and increase and have a positive working environment. I'm pro-union, and I'm the past president of the Waukegan Labor Union, and I know how to follow county policies and labor contracts. I would reinstitute death prevention programs that the current coroner eliminated, these being child safety, crib safety, fire safety, and safety, and car seat installation and safety. I would serve the families of Lake County. I would give them compassion and professionalism. I would assist families with services that will be available to them and their loved ones. Timely death notifications will be a main priority. I would be doing this, and I would bring service and caring to my office. My office will be a working office from the coroner on down. And my ending statement is, Dr. Rudd's a liar.
First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time on a Thursday night to educate yourselves on the county-wide races and the county board races. I truly appreciate voters wanting to learn about the issues. As I stated in my opening, I truly believe the coroner's office should be about death prevention. We need to educate our young people about the dangers of heroin, texting and driving, suicide, and alcohol. We also need to educate parents so they can reinforce what we've taught. I know that we can save lives, and that's what we need in our county. The only time a child should be in the coroner's office is if they're on a tour, not on a gurney. We also need to make sure the office is one of compassion and availability. I will be available 24 hours a day for our citizens, our funeral directors, our state's attorney, and our police departments. I know many of the investigators in the coroner's office, and they are great people. I want to allow them to further their education and become boarded. Continuing education would be a great benefit to them and ultimately a benefit to the citizens of our county. I'd like to end with one of my favorite quotes by Gladstone. "Show me the manner in which a nation cares for its dead, and I will measure with mathematical exactness the tender mercies of its people, their respect for the laws of the land, and their loyalty to high ideals." Thank you for your time tonight, and I hope I have your support as the next Lake County coroner.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rudd. No, we're not done yet. We're not done.
I'm going to end it a little different. I'm going to read an excerpt from a column. You heard that I'm the write-in candidate. Politics take effect on my candidacy. So I'm going to quote from David Reuter, just an excerpt. "Do Lake County Republicans hate Dr. Rudd? Of course not, they say. We just love him. Although winning the Illinois Law Enforcement Executive of the Year award for his core values and professionalism seems a bit much. But holding the door open and telling him to leave doesn't seem to be working. Normally, these disputes are settled democratically, but the Republicans of Lake County have decided it's cheaper to win elections by keeping opponents off the ballot and out of the voting booth than by letting the voters decide. It's a Mussolini-esque democracy. If you wonder who is secretly attempting to force him in exile, just think about who it benefits and who it hurts. Why sabotage? That's obvious. Republicans suspect that they can't beat him by keeping him from the electorate. He stood up for the truth too often to be ignored. The GOP can only win by defeating democracy.
Now we're done. Now you can clap. All right, we're going to take a few-minute break, and then it'll be the Lake County Board District 13 candidates. We're going to go to the Lake County Board District election next, but before that, we want to introduce Robert Harridan for the running for the office of Recorder of Deeds. Now, the way the League of Women Voters works is if his opponent does not show up, he can't debate her. So he is allowed, because he is here, to have a 2-minute presentation to you. And because we I don't know, you were late, but we jumped ahead, so you are getting your 2 minutes now, and then we will move on to the other one. All right, so it's Robert here, but Bob there. Harridan, running for Recorder of Deeds.
Thank you.
You have 2 minutes. Oh, sorry.
I'll sit down here. I'm Bob Harridan. I'm running for Recorder of Deeds. I'm a Lake County person. I grew up in Libertyville, went to Libertyville High School. I love this county. I went to the College of Lake County, then went to UIC. I have a lot of education that I think I can help for the Recorder of Deeds. I have an engineering degree from UIC. I also got a master's degree from Marquette University. I worked for Abbott Laboratories for 12 years. I understand documentation, documentation control. I understand the needs for documentation control. I have spent a lot of time doing FDA submissions for my own product. I have a product on the market currently, and I'm also a dentist. I've been a dentist for 17 years. I plan on working and running for Recorder of Deeds. And some people ask, why would you run for the Recorder of Deeds? The recorder right now, Mary Ellen Van Deventer, is running for her 5th term, and I think no one should run for their 5th term. I don't think anybody should run for the 3rd term, but that's a different story. I think we can merge this office with the clerk's office. We can save the taxpayers $500,000 in 4 years. If we can save $500,000 in 4 years, that's going to continue and save the taxpayers a lot of money. If we could do this, it's going to take an education of what's needed in the recorder's office to automate it and what's needed in the clerk's office to merge with it. Cook County is looking at doing it. McHenry County is already talking about doing it, and we need to do it here in Lake County. I don't need the job, and you don't need to pay for it.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you. All right, and I guess because you're seated in this order, you're going to go. Oh, really? Okay, ladies.
Whatever you want. Go ahead. Here, you. No.
Really mess me up.
All right. Heads or tails?
I don't know what you
Heads, yeah.
Okay, what do you want? Heads or tails? This is really.
Oh,
you should have called it first. Wait.
I don't know. Why don't we? I mean, let's just pick.
Yeah, somebody else. Yeah, right.
We're
good.
Thank you.
All right, and then, for your community statements, you'll go first.
Okay,
you'll
thank
go
you.
second. All right.
And then is
You
this
have
the
a
mic
minute
that?
and a half to make your opening statement. And I will give you the mic.
Okay, excellent. Okay, ready, set. Hi, I'm Sandra Hart, and I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for this event and to all of you for attending. I've had the privilege of representing the 13th District for the last 4 years. I pledged 4 years ago that I would bring county government to you, and I have, by offering open office hours, holding property assessment appeal workshops, budget overviews, and bike path programs. I can often be found at the farmers market on Friday mornings talking to people about county services and your forest preserves. I am proud of what I've accomplished. I led the effort to televise finance so that you can see how your tax dollars are spent. I worked to create a partnership with Walgreens to provide prescription drug disposal boxes, alleviating the burden for our police departments. I worked closely with the Sheriff's Office, the Health Department, and the State's Attorney's Office on the opioid epidemic and providing better long-term care for our residents living with mental health issues. Before joining the county board, I worked at Kraft Foods for over 13 years, managing a $37 million business and developing strong analytical skills, which is useful during our budget meetings, which are coming up next week. I have a business degree from Indiana University and an MBA. I also served as the referendum chair for our new elementary school in Lake Bluff and on the Park District Board for 7 years. I've always worked in a bipartisan manner and believe that it is the person, not the party, that matters. I am proud to be supported by independents, Republicans, and Democrats. I look forward to continuing to work full-time and representing you for the next 4 years.
Thank you. Okay, now we have Ann Brennan.
Hi, I'm Ann Brennan. I'm running for the first time for elected office. I've been living in Lake Bluff since 1996. A few years after I moved there with my 2 children, I became a divorced single mom with sole custody of my children and sole financial responsibility. My kids attended the Lake Bluff public schools, Lake Forest High School, and then college in Chicago. And I'm happy to say they're both in their mid-20s. Neither one of them lives in the area anymore, but they're both independent, working, and turned out great. On the professional level, I started my own business when I was 30. I have an executive benefit business, which is in the insurance business, and I work with entrepreneurs and very established companies in the area of executive benefits, which involves life insurance, disability insurance, pensions, and supplemental retirement plans and long-term care. So I am running for the Lake County Board for several reasons. One is I believe we should stop the growth of property taxes. I believe we can do that by creating jobs, attracting businesses, and providing better transportation facilities. And I believe because I've worked with entrepreneurs, boards, and management committees for so many years, I'm uniquely experienced in this area and can apply my skills to Lake County Board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, question number 1 is going to Ann. Explain the Forest Preserve Board role, I think, and why we should be so happy each time hundreds of millions of dollars are spent on them.
Well, first of all, I don't think my understanding of the Forest Preserve Board, their budget, I think their budget's only $72 million. So I don't know where the hundreds of millions of dollars come from. I think we would all agree most people come to Lake County. One of the reasons they come is because they love the open spaces. I also think that the Forest Preserve does provide a lot of educational value besides entertainment value. My understanding, I think you all know if you're on the Lake County Board, you're automatically on the Forest Preserve Board. I think there are certain statutes and spending that are dictated by the state, but generally speaking, my opinion is that the Forest Preserve Board has been pretty well run. And I'm not aware that they have hundreds of millions of dollars of overruns.
Right.
I don't really understand.
I just read the questions.
Right.
Thank you. Now you can respond.
Yeah, I actually think the Forest Preserve is very well run. It was really one of the main reasons why I decided to run for the county board was because of my interest in serving on the Forest Preserve Board. Having our forest preserves offers an incredible quality of life, and that quality of life attracts people to Lake County both to visit and work. And when you have a strong group of residents living here with high educational opportunities and a strong education background, then you also attract businesses. So I think our forest preserves provide a very important I guess, product, if you will, to the people living in Lake County. And we also in Lake County have the most endangered and threatened species in the state of Illinois. So our forest preserves provided a very significant habitat to protect those creatures. I'm very happy, again, with how we do our budgeting. We have made significant changes in how we are spending money. We have made some reductions in headcount, and certainly that's a large area of where we spend our money is around staffing, and we have a lot of grants that we take advantage of in order to work more collaboratively.
Okay, thank you. Now, Ms. Hart, you're going to get this second question, get to go first. Lake Bluff continues to have erosion problems with the ravines. This will lead to loss of building and has already caused loss of property to homeowners on the ravine. Shouldn't the Stormwater Management Commission be helping with this?
The Stormwater Commission does help with that. Lake Bluff is a certified Stormwater Management Commission community, and so we have an excellent working relationship with Lake Bluff. I serve on the Stormwater Management Commission, and ravine restoration is something that that our commission is very well aware of. The Lake Michigan watershed has grant opportunities every year. Communities and municipalities can apply to receive those grants for work and restoration on those ravines. So I do recall, and this was a municipality effort that was done before I came on the board, but I know Lake Bluff did a lot of restoration work on our ravine, and they put in some riffle effects, and that really stopped a lot of the erosion. I know Lake Bluff is also working on an overall stormwater management program because of the massive flooding that occurs during those heavy downpours when you can't even access the east side of Lake Bluff. So, you know, we have a very close working relationship with the community.
But Ms. Brennan, your response.
My response is, well, I can appreciate there are problems with the ravine. I think Lake Bluff has bigger problems, and that is traffic congestion, and also the sewers are a huge problem. I've lived there since 1996. I know this personally because the area we live in, you cannot get there when we have downpours. But I think overall, when you run for a board position, you need to have a strategy of how overall this affects a variety of communities, of which Lake Bluff is one. I don't think some of our issues are unique. And again, I think from a business standpoint, we need to look at all of it. We need to look at the funding. We need to see what's the most efficient way to resolve the sewer issues and the transportation issues as best we can.
Okay, Ms. Brennan goes first on the next one. Do you think the number of board seats is too many, too few, or just right?
You know, I'm a free market and limited government person, so even if I do get elected, I tend to appreciate efficiency. I think they've shrunk the board in the past, and I think probably it would be a good idea to shrink it further in the future. Again, it depends on how efficiently you can provide services in government. I don't think necessarily big numbers ensure better government. So I would be in favor, if it makes sense and the taxpayers want it, to shrink the board and make it more efficient. Okay. Even though I do want to add, just to be clear, that it is a Republican-run board. They've done a good job. I know Mike Rummel, who's here, is on the Finance Committee, so it doesn't really have anything to do with this, but my understanding is demographics change and they are changing. Perhaps the board is bigger than it should be.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hart?
I would agree, and Ann is correct when she said she had believed that the number of board members had been reduced. So there used to be 23 board members, and now there is 21. And I think it is always makes sense to look at how we can run things more efficiently. So absolutely, I would be in favor of that, and I think we could do it very quickly, but I believe we have to wait until the 10-year mark. Every 10 years that things get remapping, which I think the League of Women Voters is very familiar with. So I think that would be the time when we would look at whether or not it makes sense to reduce the number of board members.
Okay. I feel like I was negligent in not telling you. If you have some burning question, you can ask for a card and it can be sent to the back to the people that are fielding these questions and forwarding them to me. We have a group back of our people making sure we're not asking multiple the same question, and we're, combining questions, that kind of thing. Because I only got 3 here left. Okay, so now, and you're giving me nice short answers, and there's only 2 of you. Now, this goes to Ms. Hart first. The county has made mental health care a priority. What does that mean to you?
Well, thank you for this question. This is something that's near and dear to my heart, and I am honored to have been appointed by our chairman, Aaron Lawler, to be the representative Lake County's representative on the White House's task force for data-driven justice. So mental health is a very serious issue. It impacts, I would say, everybody in this room. I'll go out on a limb that everybody here knows someone who suffers from mental illness, serious mental illness, or suffers from it themselves, and it has impacted their life in a major way. So right now we have an issue where mentally ill persons are cycling through our jail. We have one person, and he is not an outlier, 17 times in 1 year through our jail. So think about the cost implications of that. So you've got a moral implication, right? And then that cost implication. And I think it is very important for us as a community to understand how can we better serve that individual, and how can we better serve the people of Lake County to provide true long-term sustaining care for these people so that they can get back on their feet. This is something it's very near and dear to me, and I look forward to working on this in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Good. Your turn.
Well, I think mental health is important. I think the bigger issue is healthcare overall in Lake County. I think we would all agree we're in a new era with Obamacare. I have a background in employee and executive benefits, and I think there are ways that the county could provide better services and more cost efficiently for mental health as well as other services by exploring joint ventures, perhaps. Many of you know Lake Forest Hospital is building a multi-million-dollar facility. We have a lot of private sector facilities, and I think we should explore those. I'm very familiar with mental health, but I think overall we, again, should put this in a broader context. About 20% of the Lake County budget deals with health and welfare benefits, and I believe we can be more efficient and cut costs and provide better services, of which mental health is certainly one. Thank you.
Good. Okay, hang on to that mic, because you're
Oh,
going
yeah,
first
sorry.
now. Next
Keep
question,
forgetting.
5.
Sorry.
Here's a new one.
Okay,
Please
good.
explain your position relative to the Route 53 extension proposal.
Oh, thank you for asking. So I think this might be an area where Sandy and I differ. I am in favor of the Illinois Tollways continuing environmental impact study on Route 53. The reason I say that is the Illinois Tollway has a $1 billion balanced budget. They're doing an impact study, which my understanding is will take another 2 to 3 years, so there's not going to be anything immediate. But as a business owner, again, I think we're in very different times, and I think strategically you need to get as much information, and I like it that it's an independent party from the board to look at it from a different perspective. Now, when that comes down, then the board and the voters have the opportunity to look at this and see, does it ultimately make sense? But generally speaking, I believe that Route 53, the expansion probably would be a good thing to create more jobs, better transportation networks. And I just want to remind Lake Bluff, Lake Forest voters that about 10 years ago, one of the options was to expand Route 41 into a 6-lane highway. And overwhelmingly, the Lake Forest and Lake Bluff voters voted to expand Route 53. So I think it really merits further study. Thank you.
So Route 53, there's been some changes over this in the last, I'm going to say 6 months. So recently our board chairman, Aaron Lawler, came out against Route 53, and I, along with several other board members, joined with him in that. When you look at the cost of that roadway, it is the most expensive roadway in the state of Illinois. Most of those costs would be borne by Lake County taxpayers. So that is in the form of increased tolls, new tolls, and an increased gas tax, as well as a tax program where schools and other areas are going to go without those revenues from any new growth, and it would go towards paying for that roadway. I think the people of Lake County are pretty much sick of new taxes, and really what I hear a lot, especially in my district along 120, so my district goes out to the Wildwood area, it's 120 and 45, and the issue is really that east-west travel along 120. The congestion is terrible. And when I had talked to the Illinois Tollway Authority, IDOT, as well as Lake County DOT, they said, you know what, we really can't do anything until we know what happens on Route 53. So I join with many of my other board members and say enough is enough, and let's really look forward, work towards, sorry.
You can finish the sentence.
Yeah, right. Work towards making better traffic improvements.
Thank you. I like the way you're all very respectful of the time. No yelling over each other, running along, all that kind of stuff. Okay, this is going to Ms. Hart first, this one. Question number 6. What is being done to create jobs in Lake County?
Well, in Lake County, we really work together with Lake County, so if we say Lake County Board, with Lake County partners and with other municipalities. We had passed a TIF district, approved a TIF district in a certain area to bring a company there. We have an excellent working relationship with other leaders as we strive to bring new jobs here. So ACON came to Gurnee, and we were part of making that happen. There's also, we have a contract that was passed that person who's working at workforce development is also working with Lake County partners to create, I think he called it like a Lake County ecosystem for business. In other words, working directly with those businesses to say, hey, what do you need from us so that you can stay here, whether you need expansion, whether you need training opportunities for your employees, and we will work to make that happen. So we have a program where we're working, it's the Lake County Board, Workforce Development, Lake County Partners, the College of Lake County, Rosalind Franklin, to make sure that we have this system in place so that when companies are thinking, gosh, what am I going to do? Am I going to move over the border? That we are there and responsive to their needs.
Thank you. Ms. Brennan?
You know, I think Lake County has a problem because we're in a highly competitive work environment. We have the highest property taxes, I believe, around the collar counties. DuPage County, Will County are cheaper than ours. And again, this is related, I feel, to Route 53 and creating more jobs. Why do businesses relocate? Well, because there's a favorable tax environment, favorable zoning, favorable regulations. We do have a great education system here, so I think we have well-trained people, and it's very attractive. But given our location, it's really easy to go over to Wisconsin. It's really easy to go over to Indiana. And I think having worked for 36 years with all kinds of business owners who've created lots of jobs, you know, I think taxes really matter. If it's cheaper to build a warehouse over in Wisconsin, they're going to go to Wisconsin. So while I applaud any effort to bring jobs, I think perhaps one should look to Will County. They had a similar situation with Route 355 10 or 15 years ago. I think, you know, we could customize that and learn from them. Amazon created a fulfillment center there, and now it's booming. It's a logistics hub for the Midwest. They're on their 4th fulfillment center. We don't have to attract a multinational, but I'm saying transportation and jobs go together, plus a favorable business environment. So I think we have to look and be much more aggressive, I think, to attract the kind of jobs we want. Thank you.
Okay, nope, hang on to that.
Oh, sorry, I keep always.
All right,
Sorry.
Ms. Brennan, you're
Yes.
first on this next one.
Okay.
What do you think is the top issue in the next few years for the county board?
I think the top issue in the next few years for the county board is the fact that we have a broke state. People are leaving. Demographics are not that great. It's not just Lake County, but the 24 to 54-year-old age group, they're leaving Illinois. So that means the Lake County Board, no matter how well run it was in the past, as they say in the mutual fund industry, past performance is no indication of future results. I think we'd all agree in an age of zero interest rates, it's harder to fund pensions. So I think the number one thing, again, is job creation. With job creation, better transportation, and more businesses, we alleviate the burden property tax as an individual payer. So you broaden the tax base, it lifts everybody up. I think it's going to be challenging, but I think it's an attractive area here, and I think we can do it, but we're going to have to be really creative and aggressive to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hart?
I think one of the things that I think our board is excited to work on is the new legislation that Lake County received, which is the ability for us to have what DuPage County has, which is what are those local units of government that could be potentially dissolved or joined together in order to alleviate the burden of having all of these different taxing bodies on our residents. So I'm very excited to work on that project. It will take a lot of analysis, but I think that that's a really important thing. Another important thing I would say is certainly the property tax burden on our residents and how we can better collaborate with other municipalities, think about how we can do things differently. So it's always doing more with less. How can we really shift our balance sheet, if you will, more away from relying on property tax and more to other revenue streams. Now, certainly with the health department and the sheriff's office and the jail, that is, those are cost drivers, right? But we just need to be smart, and I think everybody is in that environment, particularly as Ann said, with the state of Illinois, that really impacts what we can do in Lake County, and it impacts our budget. So when we are waiting to be paid $8 or $9 million from the state, we have to make very difficult decisions at county level.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, hang on, you got question 8 here to go first. What should be done with the Winchester House when it closes?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I think we'll have to look at what the structure holds. I believe we will, once the new owners have the building completely built and that building is empty, we'll really have to take a look at what the needs are for that area. But that's going to be a lot of community engagement and interdepartmental conversations, really. Does it make sense for us to have another structure? It may not, so.
Ms. Brennan?
Winchester House, just to be clear, is senior housing, correct?
The old facility.
I'm just reading
It's
the
old
question.
facility, right?
Yeah, I mean, somebody's still there.
Yeah, but I just want to be clear. So, you know, we have an aging population, and again, I'm more of a free market person and a private industry person. I think we should explore, before Lake County takes on perhaps more capital improvements. We already have the courthouse. I think we should look at that. There are a lot of private sector entities going up to serve the needs of the elderly. I know this personally. My 92-year-old mother lives with me. I've supported her for the last 6 years, so I have personal experience with healthcare and the challenges with the elderly. So I would argue, I think, again, like so many things, we're in a different ballgame. We need to take a look and see if we can't either do a joint venture or do something with the private sector to provide better services. Thank you.
Good, good. All right, now, well, hang on, you gotta keep that
Oh,
now.
we can't-
This is gonna be question number 9 and the last question. Then we will go to your closing statements after you, now, can you hardly wait what this could be? Is the Lake County Board a place to really resolve the needs for affordable housing?
I would say the Lake County Board is certainly one of the areas to discuss the needs for affordable housing. I mean, it's a fairly complicated issue because it impacts, each community has certain unique needs because of their demographics. I think the county board with its experience running across the county experiences, but again, I think it's just like business. I think you need different interests to study this, bring it together, bring it before the board. I think the board is one of the best formats to have a public forum, frankly, and put it before voters. But I think it is a pretty complex issue, and you need each individual community to kind of address their needs and also have some demographic projections and certainly cost projections to how that'll play out.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hart?
So I also serve on the Housing Community Development Commission, and affordable housing is something that we work on. We just did our 5-year consolidated plan, and what they do, we had a consultant come in and really analyze what was going on in Lake County. And one of the things that we found was that there is a real need for affordable housing. Suburban poverty has grown at quite a high rate here in Lake County. So it is a place for us to have those conversations. However, those conversations, because of the makeup of the Housing Community Development Commission, we have private citizens there, we have people from municipalities, and we have several county board members. So that's going to be discussion that will be ramping up over the next 4 years because, again, of that consolidated, that 5-year plan, we're really shifting where we put our resources and our priorities.
Great job. Okay, now, Ann Brennan, you get to start with the final, your 1 minute and a half closing statement, and then Ms. Hart.
Okay, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters. It's great to be able to have a free and open debate in this country because many do not. I also appreciate Sandy, who lives about 3 blocks from me, debating with me. I would like to say my closing remarks. I'm running for Lake County Board because I was fed up with property taxes. I've been here 20 years, and as I reiterated, I was tired of a 250% increase. I believe government, no matter how well run, can always be more efficient. I believe our country, our state, and our county is going into different times. I think we're going to face new challenges, and I feel, given my business experience, and working with so many business owners across all kinds of industries, and as I mentioned, manufacturing, distribution, legal, healthcare, financial services, that puts me in a unique position to help Lake County attract jobs, provide better transportation, and also have a more efficient budget. Thank you so much. I hope you'll consider voting for me.
Thank you again for being here, and to the League of Women Voters for this event. The next 4 years will be an exciting time for both boards. We're in the midst of building the new courthouse in Waukegan and making necessary improvements to the Depke Center in Vernon Hills. I am honored to be Lake County's representative on the White House's Task Force to Reduce Recidivism and to work on the Mental Health Coalition to move forward on this important issue. I continue to be focused on providing a seamless paratransit system for seniors and disabled residents so that they can get to work and medical appointments, and I worked with Shields Township to bring that service here in Lake Bluff. I also work closely with Lake County Veteran and Family Services on veteran programs. At our forest preserves, we are focused on increased connectivity for our bike trails, opening our preserves, and restoring them to their native state and providing an important habitat. 4 years ago, I pledged to work full-time for you, and I have done so. In addition to serving on these 2 boards, I also serve, as I said, on Stormwater Management Commission, Housing Community Development Commission, the Sexual Assault Coordinating Council, and the Lake County Opioid Initiative, as well as serving as an alternate on SWALCO. Over my term, I have met many of you, and you've given me your ideas, thoughts, and input. I will continue to listen, and I will push for solutions and will not stop until they are found. I am proud to have received the endorsement of the Daily Herald, the Sierra Club, and the Lake County Farm Bureau, and to have significant bipartisan support. I ask for your vote in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Okay, now this is the Lake County State's Attorney. We have Mike Nierheim and Matt Stanton. Sorry. They flipped the coins, and Mr. Stanton won. So he gets to go first with his 1 minute and a half opening statement, and then that will be followed by Mr. Nierheim.
Thank you. I'm Matt Stanton. I'm a practicing attorney. I'm an adjunct professor of law at Chicago-Kent College of Law. I teach special topics in constitutional law. Before that, I was a school counselor and a teacher. I'm a family man. I raised 5 children. I raised them as a single parent for most of that time. 2 of my children have special needs. They're all adults now, but I am proud to say I had 5 honor roll students. During that time, I worked a variety of different kinds of jobs, including truck driving loading dock, different sorts of things. We all know that the Lake County State's Attorney's Office has a national reputation because of the many, many wrongful convictions that not only were mistakes that happened in the office, but were fought tooth and nail against the evidence of the science. I think that we're becoming aware in this country that prosecutors have virtually unbridled power, and that power should be exercised for the public good with humility and restraint. It's representing the people of Lake County, not a privileged class of people as a prosecutor. The politicization of cases that I've seen in this office, especially the very public ones against the county's own coroner, are something that is an outrage.
Thank you. Mr. Nierheim.
Thank you. I'm Mike Nierheim. I'm the Lake County State's Attorney. I've served you for the last 4 years as your State's Attorney. Before being the State's Attorney, I started my career as an Assistant State's Attorney, where I tried cases as a prosecutor, handling everything from traffic to murder and everything in between. I've also worked as an experienced defense attorney, trying cases representing people charged with crimes in Lake County. I've also handled cases on behalf of indigent clients where there's a conflict with the public defender's office, representing people that can't afford an attorney. So I've been on both sides of the law, and I bring an experience to this office second to none. I'm proud of my office, and we do have a reputation for wrongful convictions, but our reputation is as a national leader for how you identify and prevent wrongful convictions. We also have a national reputation under my leadership for what we're doing to address this nation's opioid epidemic, specifically here in Lake County. I co-founded the Lake County Opioid Initiative with a lot of community partners. I was instrumental in putting naloxone, which is the antidote to an overdose, in the hands of law enforcement, and they've had 115 saves as of today here in Lake County. We also just launched a pre-arrest diversion program, which is one of its kind in the county. So these are a lot of areas where Lake County has led the country under my leadership, and I hope to continue to serve you for another 4 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No, there's not going to be any clapping or booing or hissing or anything. Yeah, we're going to let them answer, and at the very, very end, after they make their closing statements, then we all clap. Okay, question number 1 is going to go first to Mike Nierheim, and this is it. Specialty courts, such as drug court, is a new concept in some counties. How has Lake County used specialty courts, and what evidence is available to document the effectiveness of this approach? If you were to be the successful candidate, what changes, if any, would you make in the office?
So specialty courts include, in Lake County, we have drug court, we have veterans court, and we have mental health court. They're all diversion programs, and they deal with different issues, and the names are kind of self-explanatory. Drug court is a true prison diversion program, and ours is unique in the state. Our drug court is, we only take high-risk, high-needs offenders. So everybody that goes through our drug court program would otherwise be in prison. But they go to drug court and they get treatment and they become productive members of society. So I'm really proud of our specialty courts program. I've worked to beef them up and to put a special emphasis on those programs. They're really not that unique, but they are. Lake County is unique in that we had the first drug court in the state, and now other counties have fallen in line, but they are all over. And I've also worked to bring, as I said I would do in 2012, an additional specialty court, which is a diversion program for first-time low-level nonviolent offenders, which allows people to pay their debt to society and yet avoid the stigma of a felony conviction. So not only have we beefed up our existing drug courts, which are in mental health court and veterans court, but we've also created additional diversion programs. We've also brought the services of a comfort dog, which we have 2 in our office, but we have one that is used predominantly in our veterans court program to help veterans that come into court with PTSD and issues like that. So I'm really proud of our veterans court and all of our specialty courts.
Thank you. Mr. Stanton, your response.
I think alternatives to incarceration are an idea whose time has come, and that's being investigated and tried all over the country. I think the deferred prosecution program that I would put into place is probably based on the same law, I think, that on the one that Mr. Nerham just began. But what it does is it allows first-time offenders for nonviolent crimes, with the participation of the victim, you have to have everybody on board, allows them a different path other than incarceration. We've had our criminal statistics in the last 10 years for cases, criminal cases filed, have gone down considerably, which follows a national trend. Yet our incarceration rate is up. So how those courts function is going to be very important. You know, we have to get the people trusting the system. We have to have people, the professionals in place that are going to be working with the goal to a path for rehabilitation for people, again, with nonviolent crime that can escape, not escape, I mean, but that can leave court with the chance of working off a felony, so that they don't have that going onto their record, which makes it very difficult.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stanton, you are the first respondent to this next question. What will you do to reverse wrongful convictions in the future?
First thing I do is institute a conviction integrity unit. This is something that has been done in other areas of the country where they've had these kinds of problems. I think what we have in Lake County, and I'd really love to hear if anybody's got an answer for it, but there's this closeness between the Waukegan Police Department and the State's Attorney's Office that is joined at the hip. The investigators in the State's Attorney's Office cycle out of the Waukegan Police Department. There seems to be a tunnel vision there, at the very least, that has resulted in so many of these wrongful convictions. A conviction integrity unit would be staffed by 2 attorneys and a couple investigators, and they would be charged with looking at cases, problem cases, as well as looking back at cases that still might be coming up the pipeline. And the conviction integrity unit, I think while we're at it, would also be involved with training new state's attorneys in ethical handling of things like exculpatory evidence, which is evidence that a defendant has a right to try and make their case, and it cannot be withheld. All of the wrongful conviction cases that we've had here have involved false confessions, and the interrogation methods that we use are also something that needs to be examined and changed.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Nerheim, your response to that same question.
So it's twofold. We have to first work to identify wrongful convictions and free people that were wrongfully convicted, which I've done. There's been 3 cases I've dismissed in the last 4 years after finding wrongful convictions and doing the right thing. And even some of these cases happened over 20 years ago, but it's still my responsibility. The other part of this is to work to put protocols into place to make sure this doesn't happen again. And there's really 4 areas that we focus on. We also do have a conviction integrity unit, which is an in-house unit headed by 3 felony level attorneys and an investigator. We also have a outside case review panel, which is comprised of volunteer experts, retired professors, retired attorneys, retired judges, people that have no ties to me or the county that bring fresh perspective to these cases. And I put a lifelong retired public defender, lifelong defense attorney in charge of that whole process, and our investigator is a retired FBI agent. So we do both, and we're one of the only in the country that does that. We also put protocols into place to ensure that identification procedures are proper. We helped write the new law on that. We put a policy into place that requires all police officers in Lake County to record all felony interrogations. And we also have a stated policy that if there's a request to test or retest DNA on an old conviction, we will always agree to that. And one of those requests led to an exoneration of somebody that had been in prison for 22 years that I freed.
Okay, thank you. Now, you have the first response to my 3rd question. This past week, the Illinois Supreme Court issued a ruling prohibiting the use of shackles, handcuffs, leg irons, belly belts, and other restraint devices cannot be used on minors during court proceedings except in specified instances. Has their use been a practice in Lake County, and if so, will that stop now?
it really hasn't been a use in Lake County. The new Supreme Court rules do provide for scenarios if somebody's a flight risk or a danger to the court or to others, they can be used, but we don't typically, and I can't think of a case where we've used them in juvenile court. Even on cases with juveniles charged with crimes like murder, when they come into the juvenile courtroom, they're brought in unshackled and uncuffed. So we already sort of follow that rule before it was even put into place. And again, that does allow for special circumstances in the event that the circumstances would warrant it. But in juvenile court, it's really set up to make sure that everybody's looking at the best interest of that minor and that the minor is treated fairly and with dignity and respect. So shackles are really hardly ever used, and like I said, I can't think of a period where they were, so that ruling really doesn't change the way we do business at all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stanton.
Well, I think it's a great ruling. Often juveniles, this is their first experience with the court system, and it should be one that is not entirely alienating, even if there's a wrong. I mean, psychological studies show that the brain is still developing into the early 20s. And so I think that we have to be careful with youthful offenders, looking at the nature of the crime, and also not directing youthful offenders into adult cases, as sometimes can be done. But shackling young people, I think, is it's not a thing that has been done that I'm aware of. And I agree with that. They need a chance. They need to be held account for their behavior, but they need a chance to get on the right path as well. So I'm completely supporting that ruling.
All right, this is my fourth question, goes first to Mr. Stanton. What characteristics of your political party would you bring to your office? In other words, what does party affiliation have to do with the state's attorney's office?
A part of me thinks that the state's attorney's office should not really be a partisan job, so much as in that we are not making law in this position. However, you do, through the policies that are adopted in the office, you are expressing political values. My personal values of facing adversity, I think, are very important. The adversity that I've faced in my life that I would bring to everything that I do. As far as the Democratic Party values, I think a more egalitarian society, one that's a safe society and a secure society, and most importantly, I think a rule of law. The rule of law should be applied across the board to people on both sides of the aisle, whether they're criminals, wrongdoers, whether they come from the police department, whether they come from the neighborhood. We should have the same set of rules for the same people. And that rule of law, I think, is a value of the Democratic Party. I think it's also what we've seen in the mistakes with this office have resulted in enormous tax liabilities to the citizens of Lake County, tens if not $50 million from all these wrongful convictions. So I would claim that as a democratic value as well, would be the fiscal responsibility.
Thank you. Mr. Nurheim.
Well, party affiliation, party politics play no role, nor should they, in the state's attorney's office. And I would agree that it really probably shouldn't be a partisan office. I run as a Republican. I'm proud to be a Republican. I have a lot of Democratic friends. And I'm proud to be supported by Democrats, Republicans, and independents. But when I do my job every day, politics has absolutely nothing to do with it. We look at the law, we look at the facts, and that's it. So in terms of principles, I would say fiscal conservatism, but I have a lot of Democratic friends that are fiscally conservative too. So I'm proud to tell you that I've come in under budget every year. I give back on average between $300,000 to $500,000 a year that we don't spend in our budget. So I'm not one of those people that if you have money in your budget, it means you just go and spend it. If we don't spend it, we give it back to the people. We've also reduced our budget. So I've been willing to work with our board. These are tough times. I treat the money that I'm budgeted as if it's your money. It's not my money. So we don't spend it freely. We're very frugal with it. But again, I don't know that that's necessarily a partisan value. That's a value that you should expect in any elected official. And so the only thing I would just repeat is I strongly believe that partisan politics plays no role in what we do.
Okay, thank you. You don't have to go the whole minute and a half. No, you're fine. Okay, now you go first here. How do you plan to address police misconduct?
So, our office, we do work very closely with police departments in Lake County. We have a good working relationship with them. We communicate a lot, but we hold them to the law. So if police officers break the law, they are going to be prosecuted. And I have prosecuted officers under my tenure. We're currently prosecuting a chief of police under my tenure. The case is taking a long time because it's under appeal. We received an unfavorable ruling by the trial court, which we're appealing. So we don't give police officers a pass. If they need to be charged, they're going to be charged. The other thing we do is we work with the community a lot, and I've put together and run and participated in community forums throughout Lake County with a lot of different groups to help bridge the gap between law enforcement and some members of the community. We also are very serious about our Brady obligation, and if I receive information regarding an officer committing misconduct that even though might not be criminal, if it has anything to do with their credibility, we are going to let defense attorneys know in every case that that officer was involved in, which we don't, that's something we do, we go above and beyond, and I've sent letters in a lot of cases this year. So officers are going to be held accountable to the law, they're going to be continued to be held accountable to the law, but with regard to, and this is maybe another issue, but the growing divide between law enforcement and the community, it's really about working to promote understanding and awareness, and I have played a role in that and will continue to.
Thank you. Mr. Stanton?
I think for the public to have trust and respect for the state's attorney, as well as the police, is that you have to have the rule of law applied across the board. And if there's situations, because the state's attorney obviously works closely with the police departments, there's an allied but separate goal that the two have. I mean, the state's attorney's office is to pursue justice in every situation. And that means that a prosecutor should be just as interested in innocence as they are in guilt. And it should be blind justice. It shouldn't matter if that person is one of your friends or comes from the club. In order to begin to build that trust with the communities, we have to see that that's being practiced and that the wrongs are acknowledged and that they're truthfully told. Even if we can't get final justice, at least they're being talked about in an honest and open way. None of this should concern anyone who's interested in safety. These are not obstacles to safety, because if you have rules that are clearly understood and they're fair, that helps the police. Again, one of the problems that we've seen is when these things with trustworthiness, the problems with false confession, the closeness between the police and the state's attorney's office that I alluded to earlier. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Now it's Mr. Stanton. You're the first on this one. Question number 6. 92% of the incarcerated are held in county, sometimes 2 years without sufficient evidence to hold. What's the solution?
A lot of people are being held because they can't come up with bond. I think that there has to be, bond has to be considered to be more realistic and based on the means that a person has. Because if somebody's being held in jail because they can't make bond while they're awaiting trial, it does several things. I mean, it puts an immense strain on their family. They lose their jobs. $500 to some people is something that may as well be $50,000. They just don't have it. They can't come up with it. And I think it's a fallacy or a fiction to pretend that that bond amount affects them the same way that it affects a person with means. So we have to have some alternatives to that and look at, if this person actually a danger? Is there actually a flight risk here? Somebody that's employed, somebody that's got extended family, depending on the nature of the crime. I think that that needs to be looked at, and that seriously needs to be reformed, because not only is it's expensive for us as taxpayers, it doesn't do what it's intended to do by punishment. It pushes people into plea agreements that otherwise may need to take the case to trial, and it's often very punitive in nature for somebody that hasn't been convicted yet.
Thank you. Mr. Nierheim?
So there's two factors when you set a bond. It's flight risk and danger to the community, and that's it. And so you look at what is the person charged with, what is their background, what is the nature of the case, and that's what the court has to decide when they're setting a bond. Now, I would quarrel with that statistic, but nevertheless, there are a lot of people that gets put in jail that are awaiting trial. We in Lake County use pretrial bond supervision more than I think any other county in the state, if not almost all of them. And what pretrial bond supervision is rather than be placed into jail while you await your trial, you were released, but you were supervised. So you have to submit to random testing, there's home visits, and it hopes to accomplish both, where you can free people from the jail while they await trial, but also keep an eye on them so you're ensuring that they're not going to flee and that they're not a danger to the public. So I'm proud of the fact that we use our pretrial bond supervision so much. And there's been a corresponding increase, if you go back about 8 or 9 years, of the number of cases where people are put on pretrial supervision, and then a corresponding decrease in the number of people that are held in jail awaiting bond. But, you know, unfortunately, we see some very serious crime here in Lake County. We see murder, we see shootings, we see aggravated criminal sexual assault, we see significant child abuse and domestic violence. So those are cases that we take seriously, and when we need to ask for a high bond on somebody to protect you and the public, we're going to do it. If we don't believe somebody's a danger or a flight risk, we oftentimes will agree to a recognizance bond and let them out.
Okay. It's tough being the moderator. I have 3 cards here that basically say the same thing. So I am going to try to ask the question, I don't know. It's definitely about RICO, if I say that right. Considering, and it goes first to Mr. Nierheim, considering the wrongful arrest of Mrs. Patrick and others under the Lake County RICO and the unlawful wiretap finding by Judge Strickland, what's your intention for the future of RICO in Lake County? And then I have something about wrongful board exonerations, and then same thing, how will you make investigations follow legal and transparent processes? I mean, it's the same.
I get it. I was expecting this one. So you've probably heard about the RICO case. It's been in the news. RICO is the racketeering statute. It's, if you watch mafia movies, it's what the feds use to take down organized crime. We have a state version of RICO in Illinois that I'm proud of and that we've used. It's the first ever RICO case in Lake County's history, where we don't just go after, it allows us to go after an entire organization rather than just one drug dealer or criminal at a time. So we will continue to use RICO. We'll use it sparingly. It's a powerful tool, and it shouldn't be used, it should be used sparingly. We've had one case. We received an unfavorable ruling from the trial court on a motion to suppress involving 6 defendants of 27. The rest have all pled. That's a decision that I disagree with, and in fact, we are appealing that decision. And it has to do with the interpretation of a statute, and it's a pending case, so unfortunately, as much as I'd like to get into the weeds on that case, I can't because it's pending, but I can tell you that we are appealing that decision. We look forward to continuing to prosecute these individuals. We haven't let anybody go. They're going to stay right where they are. We're going to continue to prosecute them, and I will continue to use the RICO tool where appropriate, because drugs and guns are a tremendous menace to our community, and I will continue to be very aggressive with those that bring harm to our communities.
Mr. Stanton, your response to my combination question.
Sure. Fred Foreman was the Lake County prosecutor for many years, and he had a mantra there. He said, number 1, don't bring embarrassment to this office. The failure of the Lake County State's office in the RICO case, I think, is not a thing you have to go into the weeds to understand. And What it amounts to is that there was a failure to sign the wiretap warrants. I mean, this is in the news, this is an article. And the wiretap, the law that Judge Strickland talked about is very plain. It's just the plain language of the law is that the state's attorney, because he's an elected position and responsive to the people, is the only person that can sign those warrants. And that wasn't done. And I think that's what happens when you leave the day-to-day function of the office to your subordinates. You have those kinds of oversights and that kind of negligence. So it's a mistake. But now we've got a whole host of suspected gangbangers that are still on the street. And I think that we have to ask ourselves, how can we make mistakes like that? If this was private practice, people would be telling me, I hope your malpractice insurance is paid up.
All right, thank you. That ends the questions that I have, and now we will turn to your closing statements. And Mr. Stan, wait a minute, who went first? I have that written down. Stanton went first on the opening, so he goes second. Mr. Nierheim goes first now.
I'm glad my opponent brought up Fred Foreman, because Fred Foreman's endorsing me. So look, when I ran for this office in 2012, I made some very specific promises to all of you. I said I would be aggressive with gangs. I said I would tackle wrongful convictions. I said I would create a diversion program. I said I would bring new programs to Lake County. I said I would tackle the heroin and opiate epidemic. And I have done all those things, and then some. And I have turned the reputation of our office around and made it a national leader. We are recognized nationally by a lot of organizations. I'm proud to have the endorsement of Democrats and Republicans. I'm proud to have been recognized for my work in dealing with heroin and wrongful convictions by the Chicago Tribune. Here's an organization that's been very critical of the state's attorney's office, very aware of what's going on in that courthouse, and they endorse me. I'm endorsed by the Daily Herald. I'm endorsed by the Center for Racial Equality and Justice, who recognize me for being a champion of justice and the work that we've done to address wrongful convictions. So I didn't just talk about things. I made very specific promises to you, and I followed through on every one of them. So I hope I can earn your continued support. I hope I can earn your vote on November 8th or before if you vote early. And I look forward to continuing to serve all of you. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Stanton, your closing statement.
Yes. I started this campaign last year with $400 and a tough primary opponent. My message has been the same. It's been to achieve a change of the culture at the Lake County State's Attorney's Office that has been entrenched for a long time. And this culture change, I mean, I was reading something, let's talk sports for a minute. Okay, the Cubs are winning, right? Theo Epstein, who is the Cubs general manager, took over probably the most famous loser in the world of sports, the Chicago Cubs. And what he talked about when he looked at the people that, the athletes that he called in, he examined their athletics, examined the statistics, but he had 3 questions for them. He said, no, I'm sorry, he had 2 questions. He said, give me 3 examples when you faced adversity in your life, 3 examples of when you faced adversity on the field. The point is he wants the right kind of people to put together a winning team. This is an office that has no accountability for all these egregious, bad prosecutions, fighting them to the end. That's still fighting them. That's fighting their own, the Lake County coroner for his scientific opinion because it doesn't mesh with what they think is supposed to happen. This is an office that's never wrong. Even when they're wrong, they're still not wrong.
Thank you. Now,